The White Sox are playing better baseball, but could this winning have some long-term effects? Let's discuss that along with your mailbag questions on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network. And also, I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. Additionally, follow or subscribe to the show on your preferred podcast platforms. Josh Nelson has an excellent piece on SoxMachine.com that goes over whether it's worth being worried that this hot streak could cost the White Sox dearly in next year's draft that I want to discuss in the first segment. Then let's dive into your mailbag questions. And finally, let's discuss why you should be excited about this week's series against the Mariners that kicks off tonight. This episode is brought to you by Hour Energy Transfusion. Go to 5hourenergy.com today and use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. Only valid through September 30th. Order transfusion-flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, so the Minnesota Twins sold off basically everything but Byron Buxton and Joe Ryan. They've lost 7 of their past 10 games, and with the White Sox winners of 10 of their past 15, you got a bunch of exciting players also leading the way. There's a possibility that the Twins could actually pass the Sox in the take-a-thon standings. Or let's actually look at it in a better way. The Sox could actually not finish dead last. And I say possible because the White Sox right now are still 10 games back of the Twins for 4th place. So there's still a lot of ground to make up. But man, I mean, the Twins literally sold off basically everything. And there is the possibility that they could be tanking. I mean, Carlos Correa, gone. Duran, gone. All that stuff is just out the window. They clearly threw up the white flag and said, okay, time to rebuild, basically. And while I've been preaching wins and losses, they don't matter this season. And they don't. Development does. But we're starting to already see, hey, some of these guys, again, are forming this core that I keep talking about every day, that everydayers hear me say. And I hope you're excited. Cautiously optimistic, obviously, still guard your heart. As I've suggested, a good way is put some hurdles for these young guys to clear. But at the same time, if they are developing at a decent rate, for the psyche of development, it would be nice to not only avoid 100 losses, but maybe actually pass the Twins in the standings to show that, hey, this team's ascending, not just in hope, but actually in reality. At least that's the meatball in me talking. Because in the grand scheme of things, when you look at it logically, you still want the Sox to finish at the top of the tankathon standings. That's the site that tracks the lottery odds for all 4 sports. Well, the NFL doesn't have the lottery, but still, who's going to end up with the top pick, that type of stuff. And while having the number 1 overall pick does not have the same impact, at least immediate impact player-wise, as it does in the NFL or the NBA, and sometimes to an extent the NHL, it is still nice to have your pick of the litter for the best potential players in the MLB draft. And that's why having the number 1 overall pick would be nice to have for next year. Especially next year's draft is expected to be loaded. And especially how you could potentially operate much more differently if you had the number 1 pick, as Josh Nelson of SoxMachine.com recently pointed out. Now, he's got an excellent column addressing if the Sox keep winning and say, again, the Twins keep losing. If the Sox keep winning at a rate of winning 6 out of every 10 games, which I don't know if it's sustainable, but say they keep going 5-5 every 10 games, and the Twins keep going 3-7 with the amount that's left, yeah, the Twins could pass them. Now, the nice thing about the MLB draft lottery is if you finish in the top 2, you get the same odds. But let's say Atlanta continues to crater, or the Diamondbacks sell off, sends them tumbling down in terms of wins and losses. It could impact the Sox draft next year in terms of their draft positioning if they lose the lottery. Because he points out, like, if you finish with the second worst record, even though you have the same odds, teams have finished with, they've ended up picking 6th or 7th. I think the Marlins picked 7th in 2024. So he makes a great point, that if you do win the top pick, though, you've got more money to operate with the bonus pool. But on the same point, he has said that no team with the worst record so far has won the MLB draft lottery. And that's why, it's kind of this balance. But here's what he writes in terms of how having the number one pick at least can help you operate in the draft maybe a little bit better. Not having the ping pong balls bounce in your favor can really hurt the draft bonus pool under the CBA rules. If the draft lottery didn't exist, the White Sox would have gained $4 million in signing bonus pool. I'm just summarizing that in bonus pool room. The difference between pick 1 and pick 10 in this past draft, and the Marlins $3 million. The difference between pick 2 and pick 7. If Mike Shirley had another $1.5 million or more to spend, he probably would have tried to sign a higher ceiling prospect in the third round. That loss in draft pool money can be significant, which is why so much of a front office strategy is dependent on luck. For the 2026 MLB draft, the CBA rules will acutely affect the Colorado Rockies, who are currently on pace to finish 44-118, but are ineligible to select first overall, as they had back-to-back seasons of selecting the top 5. The best they can hope for next July is the 10th overall pick. What hurt the White Sox this summer now helps them in the draft next season, as they currently have the best odds to win the first overall pick. According to MLB Tankathon, the White Sox have a 25.55% chance of earning the first overall pick. But again, no team has finished with the worst overall record has actually won the first overall pick in 3 tries now. So again, the economics is huge, because maybe the White Sox could copy what the Nationals did this year by going with a player who would sign for under slot and then spreading that money around maybe for a couple of more higher ceiling prep players in rounds 2, rounds 3, rounds 4, because you have more ammo to say, I can pay basically your NIL buyout, because that's going to be the competition now, especially for prep bats and even prep pitchers. They can just go to college, make 6 figures potentially in NIL money. So you are competing with that type of stuff. So you got to make it worth their while to be like, okay, I can give that up to go ride buses in the minor leagues for a couple of years, that type of stuff. And the other thing is, if they do want to dip back into the prep shortstop pool next year, because maybe they do love Jacob Lombard or Grady Emerson. And again, there's nothing wrong with loading up on shortstops, because you can always move them. You should always be drafting up the middle. Then you got cash on hand. And hey, maybe again, one of them underslots like Eli Willits. However, Nelson makes a great point when it comes to, should we be worried about the White Sox ruining their draft position? This is his final 3 paragraphs. As we've learned in the first 3 MLB draft lotteries, don't fret if the White Sox play so well in the final 2 months that they lose out with the best odds to draft first overall. The whole process has been very random and somewhat chaotic, which surely was the league's intended outcome. The good news is that 2026 MLB draft class will feature better college bats than we saw recently drafted. So even if the White Sox lottery ball doesn't net them the first overall pick, there's plenty of quality hitters to go around in the top 5 picks. Moreover, jostling for position at the top of the draft is about securing the rights to add one prospect to the organization. In Colson Montgomery, Edgar Carroll, Kyle Teal, Grant Taylor, Shane Smith, Chase Mydroth, Curtis Mead, and still more others, the Sox have a slew of young players important to their future on their active roster. The team needs them to develop into solid contributors, and if that happens at any kind of successful rate, wins will be a byproduct. So enjoy this hot streak and root for it to continue through September. That means that when the White Sox bullpen implodes on a Sunday afternoon, it just hurts and the pain can't be easily blunted by the comfort of it being a tank win that improves the team's draft standing. But we won't know until December in Orlando where the White Sox will pick next July. And if history is any teacher, we couldn't count on the dominoes falling in the order anyway. So again, he's just giving you a reason that, hey, enjoy the ride right now. Because again, development matters. And if they can learn how to win, that's a good thing. Well, I want to make every Tuesday your mailbag questions. I want to make that a weekly thing. And I got a couple that I want to address after the break. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. And it's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like a much-watch event. FanDuel's traditional money line spreads and over-unders, they're fun to play. But I always maintain if you want to win big or at least double or even triple your money, then go with FanDuel's parlays, props, and futures. For example, you can still get a good number when it comes to who's going to win the World Series. So, think the Dodgers are going to repeat? Last time I checked, they're at plus 240. So you can still turn $10 into $24 if they win it all. And maybe the San Diego Padres win it all after they went all in at the trade deadline. They're at plus 1,800 last time I checked. So $10 on that. And if they hit, guess what? You just won $180 if they're going to win the world, if they win the World Series. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. All right, so I think I need to workshop a better segment name. But every Tuesday, I do at least want to do one segment dedicated to your mailbag questions. So feel free to send your questions, commentary, or concerns to lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com or via X, formerly Twitter, at LockedOnSox or at ToddJDub. And I'll try to get to them. I was thinking right now, taking Tuesday mailbag questions. I don't want to do Monday mailbag. It just seems so cliche. And I think we got the minor league Monday report going pretty good. Plus, I think a lot of, during the season, it's a good way to, the Monday show is good to recap the weekend. So, we got to workshop that. So if you got any suggestions too, feel free. All right. So I got a couple of mailbag questions I want to tackle. First one, I sort of answered, obviously, in the first segment. But my guy, Sydney, had two more questions. This is what he writes. Todd, can they get 23 more wins? Does winning change the team's draft position? Will Jerry take credit for the turnaround? Sincerely, Sydney. And again, Sydney, I love it that you, when you email, I enjoy exchanging emails. And again, I'll try to email you guys back too. And if I don't respond right away, just know that, I got other things going on, but I will try to be your electronic pen pal to discuss baseball so long as it's respectful. In terms of your question there, Sydney, 23 wins obviously is the magic number to avoid 100 losses for the third straight year. And I guess it just depends on if things like, say, Colson Montgomery keeps providing power. Can he stay on this home run? Does Luis Robert Jr. actually finish off hot and not regress back to the awful player we saw in the first half? Does he stay healthy? These are questions that you want to kind of look at. And if it stays what we're seeing right now, yeah, I think they got a shot. It would be nice if Jonathan Cannon, though, wasn't getting rocked so much. But if Aaron Savali keeps pitching like he has the past three starts, that's going to make up for, Cannon getting rocked a lot. And Savali's got financial incentive to play well because he's a free agent after this year. And one of the reasons why he demanded a trade from the Brewers was he wanted to be a starter so that way he could make a little bit more money in free agency. He didn't want to go to the bullpen. Bullpen arms don't make him as much, obviously. He doesn't want to be a swing arm. He wants to be a starter. So if he can finish strong, he can go into free agency with the case that, hey, I'm got the production to at least get a 1 year, $10, $12 million deal. I don't think he's going to get a multi-year deal. I think he's forever on the 1 year contracts until he retires, but it's about adding up more money. And if you can pitch well, obviously in 8 innings, you're going to earn more. So there's a possibility he's got the financial incentive to, chase. And then if Sean Burke and Shane Smith can pitch strong down the stretch, along with Davis Martin, because again, starting pitching hasn't been the has not been the problem at all. You've got obviously an opportunity there. It's what can the lineup do, and also what can the bullpen do? We saw on last Saturday, the bullpen came through. On Sunday, there's still the reminder that, this bullpen still has work to do. But I like the role that they're on. Right now, though, August, the stretch of schedule is a little bit tougher, obviously, with the Mariners. I think you got the Guardians, who are playing much better. Kansas City, who's been up and down, still has always been a thorn in the White Sox side, and I think they have to go to Kauffman Stadium. I know you still have to play the Padres, and I believe they have to go to the Yankees, or it's the reverse. I think the Yankees come to Rate Field. So there's still some, tough games ahead, but as we're seeing right now, these young guys, they don't care. Bring it on, as they say. In terms of Jerry taking credit, I think the one thing that actually Jerry has done all right in the past is he sort of lets guys like Ozzy, remember, or Kenny take the credit. Jerry wasn't, I don't remember Jerry in like '05 kind of going, "Yep, I did it," that type of stuff. The only credit I know he has taken is bringing back Tony La Russa, which reportedly he still thinks is a good idea, that type of stuff. So I don't know if he would take credit for that, though. I think he would actually deflect, to Chris Getz and Will Venable, saying, "See, I hired Chris Getz. The laziest GM search ever actually paid off," that type of stuff. All right, so this one is from Bob. Do you think Sosa or Bryan Ramos could learn to play the outfield over the offseason? Not like asking a first baseman like Vaughn to switch positions, but a better up the middle athlete. I'm sure that's not a good idea. Just wanted your opinion, Bob. Hey, Bob, thanks for emailing, and sorry that I gave you the 670 score Bob accent there, but I just whenever you hear a Bob from type of Chicago, you kind of do have that 670 the score Bab in the background. But I really appreciate you listening. Really appreciate your emails. I know you're another one that's emailed regularly. I like conversing with you. And as I did briefly reply to him, it's not a stupid question. It's no stupid questions, you know. And honestly, I think it's a good one because, in terms of Sosa, I would say no. That one though, and it's not stupid. It's just I don't trust Sosa because I get while the best place to hide your worst defender is in left field, and your second worst usually at first base. Because again, in first base, half the time all you gotta do is just catch the ball and put your foot on the bag. Well, we know Lenyn Sosa sometimes can't even catch the ball or put his foot on the bag, and his defensive instincts are just so bad that I don't trust him to read the ball coming off the bat well from the outfield. I just don't trust him. Ideally, what Lenyn Sosa is he's basically I would say replacement level DH. Because if you look at his numbers, the average is decent, the slug is decent. As long as that's there, he actually does provide value at the plate, decent. But he's going to be walking a tightrope, as I've said, that if his average plunges because he doesn't walk, he's not going to add much to get you to that, decent 750 OPS. So, and if he stops slugging, that's another thing that doesn't then no longer makes him a value player because he's got so bad defensive instincts. Ramos, actually, I know there was talk of him playing first, and I believe the outfield at the end of last season. And I think he did say that he was taking, he was taking fly balls, not just taking fly balls to be hanging out with the pitchers, but he was taking fly balls during batting practice and other practice sessions last season. And I believe Baseball America had a scouting report on him thinking, he probably could move to the outfield. And if Curtis Mead's swing adjustment that he made with the Rays shows results now that he's up with the White Sox and hopefully get some playing time while Miguel Vargas is out, you're going to have a crowded corner infield then because you would have Vargas and Mead, or Mead and Vargas, however you want it. So maybe then Ramos's only shot is in the outfield. However, I think the front office is quietly telling you that I don't know if they see anything in him anymore because he still hasn't gotten called up. Now, I know he struggled at the plate this year at AAA, and he struggled with injuries, but you just don't even hear about him anymore. Like the GM just doesn't mention him. So I don't know if he's at like Dominic Fletcher and Oscar Colas status, although he has a 412 slug at Charlotte. So we'll see. But I think it could make sense for him to play in the outfield because he's still 23. Well, the White Sox play a playoff contender this week in Seattle, and I'll share why I'm actually excited for this series against the Mariners after the break. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. And I remember my buddy and I, we thought we got this great deal playing 18 at Chapel Hill Golf Course. And Chapel Hill Golf Course is kind of a longer course, but it was $25 to walk. We were teenagers thinking, hey, we could walk 18 while carrying our bags. Bad idea, because I could have used a 5 Hour Energy Transfusion then, as I was absolutely dragging on the back nine. And golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse to go to without chasing down that bev cart. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. And whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, or wherever they get their podcasts. This show's available on all major podcast platforms. All right, so I hope I don't come to regret this, but I'm actually looking forward to this series against the Mariners. I mean, I would love to see Colson Montgomery hit home runs like Julio Rodriguez has done his first 4 seasons for the Mariners. I would love to see Montgomery have that positive impact, although I know Rodriguez kind of regressed last year. He's already at 2020 this year. I don't know if Colson will be a 2020 guy, but man, that'd be great if he could. And the other reason, again, why I'm excited is I just want to see, how does Colson do in the next series against a playoff contender? I want to see how Edgar Carroll and Kyle Teal, I want to keep getting more data. Yesterday I was like, where's my White Sox? I actually wanted to watch a White Sox game again, and it's not because it was meatball, it's because I'm excited, I'm passionate. Hey, the dark clouds may start to dissipate, and there was no White Sox baseball. But I do want to see if this hot streak can continue against a team that loaded up with 2 major bats at the trade deadline. Although, again, I hope I don't come to regret this, because there's that boogeyman now. We got to face him again. Josh Naylor. He's on the Mariners. I mean, I was hoping. The one thing I loved about when he was dealt to the Diamondbacks in the offseason was, okay, only got to face him now 3 times a year instead of 13. He is the epitome of a Sox killer, and he killed the Sox when the Diamondbacks came to town. So I was hoping that you only had to deal with him for 3 games, and then he gets traded to the Mariners. And I looked at the schedule. I'm like, man, gotta go out west. We gotta face this guy again. But outside of that, I'm looking forward to this series because, again, the Mariners are in a spot to potentially get the final wild card spot. That's where they're at right now today, if I read the standings correctly. They're in that push for the playoffs. And I know it's still early August, but this is where it starts to get late early out there. So it would also be nice, can the White Sox try to play a small dent, put a small dent into their hopes? Play spoiler by putting them back in the race. And I know it's still, early August, but, these are the opportunities that you're going to get to almost sort of play semi, games that mean things, even though you're out of it. I remember I covered, it was actually when the Dodgers were terrible, although I think he was with the Rockies then, but Jim Tracy. And now, granted, again, it was September. August is a little bit different, but still September. And he said, even if you're out of it, if you're playing a playoff contender around this time, you can use that as an environment to kind of simulate what you hope to eventually be in on the other side. And plus, you owe it to baseball and you owe it to the other team to just not roll over and die. So that's kind of, hey, play spoiler. And maybe I'm, with my chest here saying that this 10-5 stretch has basically made me think, hey, let's take it on, bring it on. And especially, these young kids, they don't know any better right now. They just want to go out and play baseball and compete. And they're scrappy. But what I've liked about too this hot stretch is it's been a tough stretch of schedule. And I even was talking about it a few 2-3 weeks ago that every dayers might remember. At the time, I was like, oh man, I don't know. I don't know about this one, but that's what winning does, and that's what the excitement does, and that's what a guy like Coastal Montgomery, when he comes up, can do. It can change how you feel about things. So it would be nice to see, can they keep this 10-5 stretch going during such a tough stretch schedule? Because that's what's also been very exciting. This isn't like they're doing. Yes, they took 2 or 3 from the Angels, but before then, they had to play the Rays, who were still in the playoff race at the time. They were 3 games above 500, and that kind of basically helped them tumble out of the playoff in the AL East race. They played the Cubs tough in 1 defeat, crushed them in another game. So basically, the only time that they got pounded was in that Saturday game. They took 2 or 3 from the Phillies. So hey, let's see if they can meet this moment now. And again, why I'm excited. It's another chance to just get some more data on these young guys. Especially, it's more data to see, are they phased by better teams? And so far, we've seen they haven't been phased. And the other reason why I'm excited is I do want to see, can Luis Robert Jr. earn his $20 million option? Again, I hope I'm wrong about the White Sox potentially going to regret not trading him. But again, if I'm wrong, we probably have the better version of Luis Robert Jr., the version that we've all wanted to see, that I've wanted to see. And another good 3 days out west could go a long way to make sure that, okay, they're going to they can go ahead and exercise that $20 million option. So that's why I'm excited to see this series. Let's see what they do against a better team. And when was the last time you could say, hey, I'm excited to see the White Sox play a good team? Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow with another Way Back Wednesday segment. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding if the White Sox keep winning, will it ruin their draft position, this week's mailbag questions, and getting excited for the upcoming series against the Mariners. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. And again, make sure to submit your questions throughout the week for next Tuesday's mailbag questions that I'll take. So have a great day, and guess what? I'll see you tomorrow.